You're watching DCA Replay, a production by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, where our communications team sits down with industry professionals and area experts to discuss programs of interest. I'm your host, Marquise Chester. Today, I'll be speaking with Linda Thompson, Director of the Georgia Commission for Service and Volunteerism, and Tatiana Cleveland, AmeriCorps Regional Engagement Specialist, to talk about AmeriCorps. Linda, could you start us off by telling us about your history with DCA and in this field of work in general?
Sure. I've been with DCA since July of 2014. However, I've been with AmeriCorps since May of 2003. So I've been in this field for quite some time. I served as the Executive Director of the Missouri Community Service Commission prior to taking the position in Georgia in 2014 as the Executive Director of the Georgia Commission for Service and Volunteerism.
Thank you. And Tatiana, could you tell us about your experiences as well?
Yeah, so I started with DCA back in January, so it's been a very interesting experience thus far. I've served with all three branches of AmeriCorps, including AmeriCorps NCCC, AmeriCorps Vista, and AmeriCorps National. After my AmeriCorps service terms, I went on to help start an AmeriCorps program out in Wilson, North Carolina with their United Way, and also worked at Elon University with their AmeriCorps program with North Carolina Campus Compact. So I have a lot of AmeriCorps background and experience.
Now back to Linda. Could you tell us about the Corporation for National and Community Service? What is that exactly?
The Corporation for National Community Service is a federal agency, and they're located in Washington, D.C., and they are actually the grantor for the Georgia Commission for Service and Volunteerism. We receive the AmeriCorps funds from the corporation, and then we in turn grant those funds out to qualifying organizations in Georgia to implement AmeriCorps programs.
All right, and AmeriCorps specifically, the program that we're here for, could you tell us a little bit of the history and mission of that?
Of course. So I'm going to start out with the mission for the Corporation for National Community Service, which is very much in alignment with the mission of DCA. So the mission for the Commission for the Corporation for National Community Service is to improve lives, to strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteerism. And then, of course, the mission for DCA is to help build strong and vibrant communities. So when you talk about the history of the corporation and the history of national service, the name William James often comes to mind. And William James wrote the essay entitled "The Moral Equivalent of War" in 1910. Now, mind you, this was during a time when there were various wars going on. This was right after, of course, the Civil War and right before World War I. And so promoting national peace during that time became a movement, and they enlisted the support of individuals and organizations all over the world. This basically became the proposal for national service. So in 1933, during the Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt established the CCC, which is more commonly known as the Civilian Conservation Corps, which was a group of young, unemployed, unmarried males ages 18 to 25 who volunteered for a public work relief program. And later the ages were changed to 17 to 28. But fast forward to 1940, the GI Bill was created during World War II, and this established the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944. And this was the legislation that provided veterans funds for college education, unemployment insurance, and as well as housing. So, and then we go fast forward to 1960 when John F. Kennedy established the Peace Corps. And Lyndon Baines Johnson established Vista, which stands for Volunteers in Service to America. And he also established Senior Corps in 1964. In 1965, the Older Americans Act was established. And under the Senior Corps umbrella that was already established, so was RSVP and the Senior Companion Program. And RSVP stands for the Retired Senior Volunteer Program. In 1970, President Nixon established the action agencies, and their responsibility was to coordinate the work of volunteers. Fast forward, 1990, the National and Community Service Act of 1990 was created, which supported national service, and this was under President George H.W. Bush, who also created a new federal agency called the Commission on National and Community Service. And then in 1993, President Clinton introduced the National and Community Service Trust Act of 1993, which created, as we know them today, the Corporation for National and Community Service of 1994. Of 1993, I'm sorry, but following in the year of 1994, most state governments wrote executive orders creating state commissions, which is how the Georgia Commission and other state commissions came to be. And in 2009, President Obama signed the landmark national service legislation, which was the Edward M. Kennedy Serve America Act, which reauthorized the Corporation for National and Community Service and also included significant provisions in advancing the administration's goals for national service. So I know that I gave you a little bit more history than you probably asked for, but you really can't talk about national service history without going through that timeline and talking about how it all began, a long time ago, back in 1910.
Oh, no, thank you. That's exactly what we needed. It's clear to see that national service does have a long and complex history. And in that history is AmeriCorps. Is there any chance you could talk a little bit more about the history of that particular program?
Sure. Like I said, the national service came about as a result of all of those different things that happened prior to. And so under the umbrella of national service, you already had Vista, Senior Corps, Senior Companions, RSVP, and then you had the CCC, which later on became NCCC, which is the National Civilian Conservation Corps, and then also was created AmeriCorps. Now AmeriCorps State and National, separate those. So you have AmeriCorps State and National. We oversee AmeriCorps State, which is specific to each individual state. We only make grants in the state of Georgia. AmeriCorps National is for programs who typically have programming in multiple states. So for example, if they have programming in, say, Florida and Georgia and South Carolina, then they would apply directly to the corporation or to the national organization, which hence the name National Direct. Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned earlier that different states have their own individual commissions, and you're the executive director of the Georgia Commission for Service and Volunteerism. Could you tell us about that organization and its mission?
Sure. So the Georgia Commission for Service and Volunteerism, as I said, was created in 1994 by executive order. And the commission is composed of 15 to 25 governor-appointed commissioners. And currently we have 22. And we are also currently composed of 5 staff. Our mission is to promote service and volunteerism in Georgia through AmeriCorps National Service Grants, community volunteer recognition, and support of local volunteer organizations and efforts.
Thank you. And so we've talked about a lot of different programs that are run by AmeriCorps and with the Corporation for National and Community Service. Can we speak more specifically about a couple of programs in particular, especially the National Civilian Community Corps?
So the National Civilian Conservation Corps is not run by the commission, but I can speak a little bit about what they do. So there are 4 campuses, I believe, throughout the United States, and the closest campus to Georgia is located in Mississippi. And basically what they do, they travel in teams, and Tatiana will speak about this a little bit more in detail as well, but they travel in teams and they travel to communities to address either conservation needs or responding to disasters or providing mitigation for disasters and things of that nature. So programs communities will request the Conservation Corps to come to their communities for whatever reason, say if it's environmental, if they're clearing away invasive species or helping to repair homes and things of that nature. A group of young people will travel, and the sponsoring agency will be responsible for providing a place for the AmeriCorps members to sleep and to take showers. And this can be something such as a church or a school gym. And there's no charge, but and typically the AmeriCorps members will bring whatever tools they need to to do the project. However, if it's a specialized project requiring specialized tools, then the organization will be asked to provide those specific tools. But they bring their own transportation, and there's no cost to the organization.
All right, well, thank you. And what about the Volunteers in Service to AmeriCorps, also known as Vista?
Which is also not run under our purview, but it stands for Volunteers in Service to America, and that's run through our regional office. And their basic focus, the focus of Vista, is poverty alleviation. And so their goal is to get to a day where no person is living in poverty, and that everybody is making a working wage and able to sustain themselves.
All right, thank you. Now, I want to ask Tatiana a question here. Can you tell us about some of your experiences as a former AmeriCorps volunteer?
Yes. So my first experience with AmeriCorps, I joined with the Atlantic region with the National Civilian Community Corps, NCCC. I served out the Atlantic region. That was my first experience. And so kind of how Linda was sharing, NCCC teams are doing short-term, what we call spikes. And so they're basically like mini deployments where they'll move within the region. So with those campuses she was describing, each one of those campuses has states in that region that they're assigned. So in the Atlantic region at the time, I think we had like Maryland and above all the way to the Northeast. And so one of my favorite projects is I was actually building houses with Habitat for Humanity in Newburgh, New York. And we were installing roofs and windows, and it was in the middle of winter, but it was like, it's one of those once in a lifetime experiences that you can do as a young person to earn some money for college, because with all of the AmeriCorps programs, NCCC, Vista, and State and National, if members do a full-time service term, they're eligible to receive a education award, the Eli Siegel Education Award, and that education award is equivalent to a full Pell Grant. So a lot of times when we're recruiting, AmeriCorps members can come from all different walks of life, but we do definitely use it as a recruitment tool for members that might be interested in pursuing finishing up their college degree with their bachelor's, which I was at the time. AmeriCorps definitely helped me complete my bachelor's degree and even go back from grad school, which I'm hoping to finish soon. But if they're doing a gap year in between undergrad and going on to grad school, we use that as kind of like a recruitment tool. But definitely my first service term was with NCCC with the Atlantic region, and then after that I did a Vista program. So I was working with an education nonprofit in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. It was called STEM in the Park. And it was a part of the U.S. 2020 initiative that Barack Obama had to get STEM mentoring to low-income minority and female students around the region. And so that, I would say, is definitely when I fell in love with the AmeriCorps service. It was just such an awesome experience. And so then I went back for another AmeriCorps service term, and I served with a program called Reading Partners in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so that program worked as literacy intervention. So we worked with second to fourth grade students with, I want to say 5 different schools in the city, and we were trying to help them catch up, because you might have students that were unfortunately as far as a year behind on their reading goals. So our goal is to help bridge that gap and help offer assistance in the classroom for educators.
So you've mentioned a lot of great stories about your own personal experience. What exactly are some ways you would say volunteers themselves can get involved?
I would definitely say volunteers can get involved in a multitude of ways. I really think that AmeriCorps is a beautiful opportunity for all people from different walks of life. Again, if you have a young person kind of trying to figure out what to do in a gap year, an AmeriCorps service term can really be a wonderful introduction to a resume. Or if we have citizens and volunteers that come from different experiences, and maybe they're in retirement and they're looking for a way to get back involved and get out of the house, AmeriCorps opportunities can really give them a hands-on way to engage with their communities.
And communities across the state of Georgia, they also have their own needs. How exactly can they reach out to get involved or request help?
So yes, that's exactly what I'm here for. So I was hired as the regional engagement specialist to be able to go out into the communities. Obviously, unfortunately, due to Corona, we're a little limited with how much is going out, but we are available for emails, Zoom calls, Teams calls, or anything like that, so we can start that conversation. And a lot of times, what I do when I'm talking with a nonprofit or a program that could possibly be a host is I like to learn about what their work is, just like kind of the big picture of what their goals are. And then I tell the story of AmeriCorps, and then we can start finding where the common ground is and how AmeriCorps volunteers can help advance their mission and get them closer to their goals.
All right, well, thank you so much, Tatiana. All right, now, Linda, I want to ask you a question. Tatiana just shared a lot of her own personal stories, but for AmeriCorps in Georgia, what are some success stories you could share with us?
If I may add something to what Tatiana just said before I answer your question.
Absolutely.
Tatiana was mentioned some very good ways for people to get involved. She talked about college students who may be in a gap year or older individuals who may be retired to join AmeriCorps. And I would also like to add that people who may be unemployed, find themselves unemployed at the moment, AmeriCorps is a really great way to lead to permanent employment, to gain new experience, and to lead to permanent employment. So if I could just offer that out there as well. But people who may be homeless, who may, who may just need a leg up, right? Who may just find themselves homeless temporarily, but once you're homeless, it's like you fall into a catch-22. You can't get a job because you don't have a place to live, because you don't have an address, and it just goes, it's endless, right? So AmeriCorps, serving in AmeriCorps, I think would be a potential solution to part of that, because they could serve as an AmeriCorps member, and like I say, the AmeriCorps experience often leads to employment. Also, a great AmeriCorps program could be, transitional housing for people who just may need temporary housing just until they can get back on their feet. Do you see how all of that can fit together?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's really endless. There, if we had the opportunity, and I think I do have the opportunity because I've been speaking with our housing people at DCA, and had been given the opportunity to meet some of their people, some of their organizations who serve the homeless. And, the homeless as in people who may be homeless because of mental reasons or because of financial reasons. They may have been foreclosed on or because of whatever. But another organization I was able to speak with were people who were just being released from prison who may find themselves homeless. And AmeriCorps members, they can serve as long as they are not, as long as they have not been convicted of murder, and they're not required to be on the sex offender list.
So it's like different AmeriCorps programs can serve different people, not just as the recipients of that service, but also the people who get to serve.
Absolutely. Just like I met some students who were being tutored when they were in high school, right? Who are now AmeriCorps members, providing tutoring to others. So AmeriCorps in Georgia, currently we have about 22 programs serving in the state of Georgia, and those programs are very diversified. We have about 75% of our portfolio programs serving in areas of education, and then we have a program serving in the area of environmental, which is Jekyll Island. Extra Special People is one of my really favorite programs. They serve people with disabilities. People with disabilities are served by the state systems up until a certain age, and then once they age out, then they're left, they fall between the cracks. And so that's where ESP or Extra Special People step in. People with disabilities who are able to, ESP will teach them how to run their own business, how to start and run their own business. And right now they have a program called the Java Cart. It's a coffee cart and it's mobile, and they travel across the state actually, and these are people with disabilities who make coffee and sell it to people. Chick-fil-A has hosted them, and lots of organizations have hosted them. And they also serve families with disabilities. Some of the other programs that we have, Covenant House and Youth Villages, who serve populations of youth who may be considered homeless or they may be foster children. And they have campuses where the students live as well as the AmeriCorps members. And they teach them, not only help them to get a high school diploma, but they also teach them life skills. And we have lots of other great programs that I could talk to you about all day long. Many of our tutoring programs, Clayton State University, Communities in Schools. I could go on forever. But just to give you some stats on how successful AmeriCorps programs are in the state of Georgia, Last year, we had 439 members, and those members served 33,117 hours. And they were able to recruit 2,661 non-AmeriCorps volunteers, and they recruit these volunteers for sustainability purposes. So for example, if they are tutoring students, they may recruit parents or people from the communities or retired people to help tutor. So once the AmeriCorps members are gone, the program is self-sustainable. But anyway, these 2,661 volunteers actually served over 33,000 hours. And to show you how popular, how great in demand AmeriCorps is, we typically get sometimes 10 times the number of people applying to be AmeriCorps members as those that we're able to actually recruit and to sustain. And I don't know that we talked about it or not, but some of the benefits that AmeriCorps members receive are a living allowance, and Tatiana hit on it too, an education award that they can use for college or tuitions or for student loans.
Well, thank you all so much for watching this edition of DCA Replay. This has been Linda Thompson and Tatiana Cleveland. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.